On June 13, 2025, the Middle East was jolted awake by a series of events that would send shockwaves far beyond the region's borders. In the early hours, a massive Israeli military assault on Iran unfolded, catching much of the world by surprise and instantly dominating global headlines. In a sweeping and meticulously coordinated operation called Rising Lion, Israel struck dozens of sites across Iran, focusing on nuclear and military facilities that had long been at the center of international concern. The attack was designed to cripple Iran's nuclear ambitions, sending a clear message about Israel's willingness to act unilaterally to protect its security. Israeli forces also targeted and attempted to eliminate key leaders and scientists behind the nuclear program, aiming to disrupt Iran's progress for years to come. This bold and unprecedented move shattered any hope for the upcoming US-Iran nuclear talks, which had been seen as a last chance for diplomacy. Instead, it pushed the entire region to the brink of war, with military forces on high alert and borders bracing for further escalation. Iran immediately declared diplomacy dead, vowing swift and severe revenge, as angry crowds filled the streets of Tehran and government officials issued threats. The world now faces the real possibility of a much larger conflict, with global powers watching anxiously and the United Nations scrambling to respond to the crisis. Israel's advanced military capabilities and Iran's vast network of regional allies mean that any further escalation could quickly spiral out of control, drawing in neighboring countries and possibly even superpowers. The June 13th strikes have set the stage for a dangerous and unpredictable new chapter in Middle Eastern history, with the world holding its breath to see what happens next. The Rising Lion operation began at 3:30 a.m., with over 200 Israeli fighter jets hitting more than 50 targets in minutes. Strikes hit Tehran, Natanz, and other key cities, severely damaging Iran's main uranium enrichment facility. Mossad operatives on the ground targeted high-value individuals and infrastructure, working in tandem with the air assault. The attack overwhelmed Iran's defenses, demonstrating Israel's reach and precision. Civilian areas were also hit, leading to casualties and international condemnation. Israel's goal: dismantle Iran's nuclear and missile capabilities and decapitate its leadership. The scale and speed of the operation sent a clear message. Israel will act decisively to protect itself, but the fallout has left the region on edge, with fears of unpredictable retaliation. Central to Israel's strategy was a decapitation strike, an operation designed to cripple Iran's ability to respond by targeting its most influential leaders and brightest minds. This was not just a military maneuver, but a calculated attempt to disrupt the very core of Iran's command and control. The mission's primary objective was eliminating Iran's top military and scientific minds, those who shaped the country's defense and nuclear ambitions. Among the dead, General Hossein Salami, the powerful commander of the Revolutionary Guard, whose leadership was central to Iran's military doctrine and regional influence, and Major General Mohammad Bagheri, Iran's military chief of staff, who oversaw the country's armed forces and strategic planning. Several other senior commanders and advisors close to Iran's supreme leader were also killed, leaving a gaping hole in the nation's leadership. The attack wiped out at least 6 leading nuclear scientists, many of whom were instrumental in advancing Iran's controversial nuclear program and developing new technologies. Among them was Faridun Abbasi, a key figure in Iran's nuclear program, whose expertise and leadership had made him a symbol of national pride and scientific progress. These devastating losses have left Iran's leadership in chaos, scrambling to fill the void and restore order amid confusion and fear. The country's nuclear ambitions have been severely set back, with critical projects halted and facilities left in disarray. For Iran, it's a national tragedy. The loss is felt not only in government halls but in the streets, as ordinary citizens mourn the fallen and grapple with uncertainty. For Israel, it is a calculated blow to its greatest threat, a move intended to buy time and security, even as it risks igniting further conflict. But such targeted assassinations risk fueling even greater determination for revenge, as anger and calls for retaliation sweep across Iran. The sudden power vacuum in Iran's command structure makes the next moves dangerously unpredictable, with factions vying for control and stability hanging in the balance. The stakes have never been higher, as the world watches anxiously, aware that the region now stands on the edge of a new and perilous chapter. The US response was muddled. President Trump insisted America wasn't involved, yet reaffirmed support for Israel's security. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu claimed the attack was coordinated with Washington, contradicting U.S. statements. Later, U.S. officials clarified they were notified in advance but did not participate. Secretary of State Marco Rubio called the strikes self-defense and warned Iran against targeting American interests. U.S. forces in the region were put on high alert and non-essential staff evacuated from nearby countries. Meanwhile, Saudi Arabia condemned the attack, and China called for calm, highlighting global unease. The lack of a unified international response has only deepened the crisis. With mixed signals from Washington, the world is left guessing about America's next move. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, appeared before a somber nation and vowed harsh revenge for the attack, his words echoing through the halls of power and across the streets of Tehran. He called the slain leaders martyrs, their images held high by mourners who filled the streets, united in grief and anger, demanding justice for those lost. The supreme leader promised that Israel would pay dearly, fueling a wave of protests and anti-Israel sentiment that swept through the country as crowds chanted for retribution. The attack shattered any remaining hopes for diplomacy, nuclear talks were abruptly cancelled, and the atmosphere of negotiation evaporated overnight. Iranian officials declared that further negotiations were now pointless, closing the door on dialogue and signaling a hardening of their stance. Iran is now expected to cut ties with the International Atomic Energy Agency, a move that would further isolate the country and raise global concerns. With international oversight fading, Iran's nuclear activities are set to become even more secretive, heightening fears about what might happen next. There are growing fears that Iran could withdraw from the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, a step that would mark a dramatic escalation and alarm the world community. Such a move would signal a dangerous new phase in the region, with analysts warning of unpredictable consequences and rising instability. In retaliation, Iran quickly launched over 100 drones at Israel. While most were intercepted by Israeli defenses, the sheer scale of the attack sent shockwaves across the region. Military analysts believe this was likely just the beginning, as both sides brace for further escalation and possible reprisals. Military alert levels are now at their highest, with troops and emergency services on standby for any new developments. Iran's airspace has been locked down, flights grounded, and the nation's borders placed under tight security as tensions mount. Around the world, governments are holding emergency meetings, and citizens watch anxiously as the crisis unfolds, bracing for a major Iranian response. The path to peace has vanished, replaced by uncertainty and the looming threat of conflict. Now, both sides prepare for war, as the world watches and hopes for restraint in the face of rising chaos. Israel has shifted to a full war footing, airspace closed, schools shut, and public gatherings banned. Citizens are told to stay near bomb shelters at all times, and the healthcare system is bracing for mass casualties. Tens of thousands of reserve soldiers have been mobilized, especially along the northern border with Lebanon. The military is preparing for attacks from Iran and its regional allies, including Hezbollah. The mood is tense but resolute. Israelis see the attack as necessary for their security, but fear what comes next. The government reassures the public, but uncertainty hangs over the nation. No one knows how or when Iran will strike back. For now, Israel waits, prepared for the worst. Experts fear the conflict could quickly expand beyond Israel and Iran. Iran's allies, Hezbollah, Syrian militias, and the Houthis, could open new fronts, overwhelming Israel's defenses. U.S. troops in the region are on alert, and any attack on American interests could trigger direct U.S. involvement. A wider war would devastate the region, disrupt global oil supplies, and threaten countless lives. Iran's initial drone attack may be just a warning. A larger missile barrage could follow. Each escalation increases the risk of a cycle of retaliation with no easy off-ramp. The Middle East stands on the edge of catastrophe, with the world hoping for restraint. But with diplomacy dead, the risk of a regional war grows by the day.